Welcome to the Kubus podcast. In each episode, we will be meeting the individuals who can give us real insight into the problems, solutions, and people in our technology industry.
Hello and welcome to the Kubus podcast series. My name is Becky and I'm delighted to introduce you to Jason and George from AddOn Networks. Gents, how are you?
Yeah, really well, thank you.
Very good, thanks for asking.
Good. Ever podcasted before?
Not me personally. I listen to them on a fairly regular basis, usually to fall asleep to. So hopefully we don't add this one to that particular.
Okay, interesting. What type of podcast?
Oh,
do you
all sorts.
listen to?
I'm a history nerd, so I like to listen to anything history orientated. Also anything comedy is great too. So yeah. A full spectrum of different podcasts.
Nice. What about yourself, Jace?
Yeah, first time for me as well, but I did catch the Kubus podcast series, including the one with James and Bruce recently.
Good.
Yeah, that was a really good one. Really interesting.
So just for the listeners, can you give a quick intro into yourself, who you are, how long you've been at AddOn, and what you kind of do there?
Yeah, sure. So I've been working at AddOn Networks for a little bit over 4 years now. I've kind of progressed from starting off in inside sales there to now being a channel director of the organisation, focusing on the UK, and I am Kubus's primary account manager.
So I've been with AddOn Networks for 11 years. My role is the Director of Operations, and it really is true what they say, time flies when you're having fun.
Yes, that is true. So just a brief introduction to AddOn Networks, and keep me honest on this one,
Of
gents.
course.
So you are the independent worldwide leader of fibre optic connectivity. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good. At least I got that bit right.
Yeah.
We've had numerous conversations, George, over the years that we've worked together.
Mm-hmm.
And what's obvious to me as an outsider looking in to the industry is that when anybody is looking at a data center project or a full infrastructure deployment, optics seems to be the last thing that anybody looks at.
Yes.
But it's fairly important, right?
It's critical. If you were to take the example of buying a car, this is an analogy I like to use fairly often because it's quite succinct in its view of it. But yes, so imagine buying a car, you choose the engine, you get all the various technical specifications of it and you're really happy with it, but you haven't bought any wheels, or any tyres I should say more accurately. It's the same thing. You need transceivers in a switch, server, router, whatever piece of infrastructure, hardware, to connect it up to something else. It's the only way you're going to be able to get it to talking to other devices. So the products we sell are absolutely crucial within the data center environment, within service providers, within pretty much any organization which needs to connect one bit of equipment to another bit of equipment. We have a solution for it. What we sell isn't the sexiest products in the world. I'm fully going to admit that. You don't design your network or your infrastructure around what we sell, but what we do provide you and what we provide your customers is the means to be able to achieve what they want to achieve at a significantly greater value and lower cost point than you would be buying from some of the OEM original sources, with greater availability and you could argue, and I'd like to stand by this, better quality.
I'm going to open this question up to both of you, but I'm going to start with you first, Jason.
Sure.
What are you seeing as the current trends and the challenges that customers are facing at this present moment in time?
It's a really nice question, thank you. So yes, it's a really challenging time at the moment. I think the last couple of years have taught us about the importance of a resilient supply chain. We've had the impact of chip shortages on lead times, which have delayed projects by weeks and months in some cases. So whenever looking at how best to combat some of those challenges, I think AddOn Networks are very well positioned to try and help leverage that. We have a high inventory availability in both the US and the UK, which we can pull from very quickly in order to satisfy orders. So if I was a data center project manager or a inventory planner, I'd be looking for a partner who's thinking about these things to try and help facilitate some of those challenges. Pausing for a second and then thinking about some of the financial implications. Again, we're in a position of an economic slowdown, and that is in itself, it presents its own challenges. So I guess as an inventory planner or as a financial controller, if you're being diligent and trying to keep the balance sheet very healthy, you'd be looking to try and keep your inventory as lean as possible. So you're balancing on the one side supply chain high availability, but with the need to keep your own inventory very, very low and run a just-in-time method of supply. So that presents its own challenges, and then again you're going to need a very reliable partner in order to make sure they've got high availability and they can do delivery within, say, a 48-hour window, which AddOn likes to pride itself on. And then pausing for a second to turn to maybe some of the other factors, and we can touch upon our own personal experiences here. The cost of electric, the cost of gas, etc., that presents its own challenges right now. And I think for the project managers and the data center managers, power consumption is probably coming to the forefront of their mind more so now than it has done in the past. And again, there are some interesting approaches and some interesting opportunities that you have to try and combat that. I've heard that one of the most prominent data center operators within Europe, they are trying to run their data centers at, I think, 10% higher temperature in order to try and keep their power consumption lower. So that's one of the interesting things I'm seeing within the marketplace at the moment. One of the other things is we've got this migration to 5G cell sites. There's more of them in order to get the right level of coverage. But at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, you probably don't need 5G connectivity. So some of those site operators are looking to switch that off in the early hours of the morning in order to balance their power consumption. The reason I'm mentioning that so much is because turning within AddOn Networks portfolio, we have a couple of technologies which are designed to be very low power consumption, one of which is the 10 gig copper, which I think we've achieved, I think it's a 40% power reduction to, I think, 1.8 watts, which is pretty competitive. Yep. And then very similarly, we've got a low power 100 gig SR4 and 100 gig AOC solution.
So that's then leading nicely into you working with partners. So through the last couple of years, what were the challenges and hurdles that you were finding?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, it's a lot of it. Jason's kind of hit the nail on the head in many respects. I suppose certainly availability has been a massive headache for everybody in the IT world for the last couple of years through one reason or another. We, from our point of view, we're in a good position to be able to assist in that because we have a good, deep supply chain in terms of where we can source our components from, in addition to hubs of equipment based in the UK, in mainland Europe, and also in the US. So we're in a good position to fulfill customer requirements in general, which is something which is, frankly, actually we've managed as an organisation to win share from the OEMs based on that side alone, let alone any cost savings which we bring. Obviously, as Jason was saying around sort of the budgetary constraints we're seeing and the overall macroeconomic situation, there's a lot of focus on shrinking your budgets and trying to get more out of less. And again, that fits well into what we offer, and we're able to assist with routinely. To make it just put a number on, we're routinely 70% cheaper than the OEM for the same products, exact same products. The main difference being is that we obviously don't profess to be a Cisco badge product or a Juniper badge product. There we are AddOn Networks compatible transceivers and cabling. And it means that the customer can be able to achieve what they want to achieve without making any sacrifices in any other part of what they're doing. They don't need to buy less. And in fact, many times we've seen where people can, using our products, they can invest and buy more, switches, routers, whatever, support, software, or just have savings. It's a massive value that we can bring, and also, I guess a lot of areas where the customer wants to achieve these savings without necessarily sacrificing on quality. And there are lots of different vendors out there selling different bits of IT kit, and people want to make sure what they buy is the best for their money. Yeah,
and that leads me nicely into something I want to pick up with you, Jason, because I've been lucky enough to come to your offices,
of course,
lab and warehouse facilities, because it's all in the same place. There's two memories that I have of this that I've taken away. One of them is that before I go into your lab, and as I go out of your lab, there is a very large sticky mat.
Yes.
To try and prevent dust and environmental pieces coming into the lab environment. And the second part is that you're continually looking at process changes, implementations, just to try and make your whole process better and quicker. So what kind of makes you unique on top of those two takeaways that I've just said?
Yeah, thank you, Becky. So I think the starting point is that AddOn Networks are an ISO 9001 organisation, which means we're constantly looking to build on our processes in the vibe of continuous improvement. So hopefully you've noticed some changes over the years, which you've alluded to. One of which being our production system. So our production system is an in-house system. I think it's now on its 22nd version update. So that's really nice that we've got the control and the power to tweak that and optimize that whenever we see the need. So knowing that we've got the control over our own processes and data management, we are then able to control the process very tightly when we are putting an optical transceiver or one of the items through our production process. So we've got great traceability. We can see at an individual serial number what has happened at any stage of that process. We've got switch logs that can help be saved down and shared with customers to help give them the confidence that this is a turnkey plug-and-play solution. And we're doing a testing on a 100% basis. That's each and every item, each and every serial. It doesn't matter whether a customer is ordering 10, 100 or 100,000 units. They all go through that same 100% testing process. And that in itself requires a lot of investment. So again, that's probably one of your main takeaways walking into that lab. Yeah. I think at the time of this recording, which is roughly April, we've got about 20 or so 42U racks in our sort of mini data center for our test lab. And we've got every OEM under the sun that you can imagine. We've got Cisco, Dell, Juniper, Huawei, HP. George, please help me out.
Arista. The key takeaway is that we're constantly evolving as an organization. I'm not trying to do myself a disservice or us a disservice here. No organization is perfect. There's always scope to improve and do better. I'm really proud to be working with a vendor who does that and practices what they preach. And yes, from the quality point of thing on the transceivers, so Jason was saying, everything is tested. When you place an order, it'll get tested, and ideally the same switch or switch series that it's going into, or server or whatnot, is ultimately going into. And if they want, we can produce test logs for every single thing that goes through. It's pretty dry reading, in all honesty, but if you're interested in it, then we can provide it. Which is something that nobody else can do.
It was interesting when I could see the impact of what a little speck of dust could have on the lens, because it really does shoot down into the micro parts of this. So that then goes back to me then going, that's the reason why you have those sticky pads walking into the lab, to prevent that one little bit actually affecting the running of the optics.
Yeah. For sure. I would say there are lots of compatible transceiver firms out there. You only need to do a Google search of a transceiver part code of some kind. You'll see many different companies. The difference is between us and all of them is that we've spent the time, the money, and the blood, sweat and tears on Jason's part to make sure that, you know, when we say quality is important to us, we really mean it. And you know, it pays dividends ultimately with the customer when, you know, because you see some of these other compatible transceiver companies. I've spoken to customers who will purposefully overbuy, you know, products knowing that there's a high chance that some of them will fail.
Yeah.
And which is bonkers, but it is what people do and is what people condition to do. Because they automatically think if something's compatible, it's therefore inferior to the original. When, you know, from our point of view, it is, you know, it's the highest possible quality. Just to say as well, in terms of, obviously we test everything. If you were to buy a transceiver from some of the big OEMs, they don't test everything. What they tend to do is they get their transceivers made externally, generally speaking, and they would batch test them. So they would say you get 100 transceivers, they would test 10, and then they would say that batch is fine, and off it goes, which is fine. I mean, it still produces a relatively decent reliability rate, but where we take it up that next notch is, you know, we can catch all of the dead components, as it were. So from that side of things, our documented reliability rate is something crazy now, isn't it, Jason? What is our rate?
It's a Lean Six Sigma approach to quality, and it means that our in-house failure rate is 0.02%. And I don't mind failures in-house, as George is alluding to, because we're able to capture those, work on those, etc. And it helps make sure that there is a 100% yield and 100% guaranteed functioning optic arriving with the customer. Yeah. And to build upon your point earlier on, there's no need to overorder, there's no need to order spares in that methodology, because there's been such a care and level of attention and quality to the processing of the products.
How do you, with the continual improvement changes that you make, how do you identify them? Is that through staff working through the process? Is that yourself that then says, actually, I'm identifying a gap? Is it then customer trends? All of them?
Yeah, that's a really nice question. It's a bit of a mix of everything. I have to rely on the first-hand experiences of the team who are running the production environment on a day-to-day basis. They're constantly coming up with new innovations and new ideas. In fact, one of those ideas a number of years ago was the automation of this testing process to automatically capture all of those test log, all of the DOM values, and save those down into a file. So that they come up with some fantastic ideas. Similarly, we had a customer tour a couple of weeks ago, and that customer identified it would be really nice if an engineer who removed a product from a switch was able to identify from a data sheet very, very quickly what the TX and RX values were to better understand the performance, the capability, the specification of the item. And they gave a really nice example of a QR code which could link straight to the AddOn website, straight to the data sheet, and already, you know, they then have everything they need. So
that's a really good one, right?
It's lovely. It's really powerful.
I can even see the value in that.
Yeah. So we're taking ideas from all over the place, and yeah, just building it to make a better process, a better product.
So I'm going to ask you a cheeky question.
Sure.
Because, you know, don't ask, you don't get. But is there any innovations coming in, like the short, medium term, that you can tell us about now?
Yes, I will try and do my best. So you mentioned about the optical cleanliness and seeing an optical lens and inspecting for dirt. One of the recent innovations was to make sure that we had a particle sensor within our lab environments to monitor 0.3 micron particles, 0.5, 1 and 5 micron particles. So we can get a really good grounding for what is happening in the immediate room to better control the environment and control the area. We're going to be building upon that in stages to basically make it an ISO recognized clean room standard. So that is quite hot off the press, and that is one of the key things that we're going to be focusing on in the next couple of quarters.
One point that I know from speaking to both of you, right, that we are as two businesses really very keen on is sustainability. To try and make our processes as carbon neutral and environmentally friendly as possible. What innovations are you or practices for you put in place and that you're working on to try and get to achieve what you want to achieve?
Yeah, thank you, Becky. So environmental credentials is very close to our heart, as you've said. I think starting on that side of the business, we are an ISO 14001 certified company. So we do take this very, very seriously. Some of the things that we've implemented to help gain that certification includes solar panels on the building roof. So I think we generate approximately 35% of all of our electric from renewable sources. So that's a nice starting point.
Yeah, that's really good.
To build.
And just to say that, I mean, that is inclusive of all the, essentially we've got a data center in our building. So, which, not exactly power light.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
so,
fair comment. So building upon that, we also have technology to help reclaim water, so recycled rainwater from the roof. And I think that means that 82% of all of our incoming water is from reclaimed sources. So our dependency on fresh water is very low as an organisation, which is, again, a nice nod to the environment and just being conscientious.
I have to say, thank goodness we live in the UK and we have a lot of rain over the winter months, right?
We are
does
in the
help
best
with
place
that.
in the world for that. Yeah, absolutely. Let's think, what else? Sustainability. We are also very conscious of our packaging. So all of our packaging is recyclable. And building upon that, this is probably one of the most recent developments. I think our plastic packaging in particular, it comes from 10% recycled sources, and we're looking to increase that to 25%.
Amazing.
So that's one of the enhancements we're making, just to try and make our impact on the environment just a little bit less.
Yeah, I mean, on the packaging side of it as well, we, if you have customers buying hundreds or thousands of units, we can ship them in larger trays, because I mean, it means it's less packaging, but also it means it's much easier for an engineer installing them rather than to untangle and fit it into the box. So it works both ways. I mean, sustainability is obviously something which is massively important and will continue to be more and more relevant as the years go by. And if some countries are starting to put more and more stronger regulation on where companies source their equipment and their supply chains. So it's something we're kind of really thrilled to kind of rise to the challenge of that. And then we also have, EcoVadis Silver as well?
Yeah. So building upon the concept of environmentally conscientious, we're also very proud of our environment, social responsibility and governance. So to George's point, we've got an independent assessment from a company known as EcoVadis, who are very popular within Europe, who have independently rated us as silver, which I think was like 94th percentile within our particular industry, within our particular sector, which is a really nice compliment for what we're doing, not only in the environmental arena, but also our social and our governance.
Amazing. George, question for you. So we've seen the world evolve from the 1 gig through to the 10 gig.
Yep.
It seems to me that it's moving into the 100 gigs now. So what other innovations are you looking to bring out that's on the roadmap for you?
Yeah, from a product point of view, sure. So I think in general, it's a diversification of options within certain data rates. So just to set the scene. So when we say 1 gig, 10 gig, 100 gig, whatever, it's down to the speed of the transceiver, essentially how much data it can send over in a second. So if it's 10 gigabit per second, 100 gigabit per second, etc. So that's what I mean by speed. And generally speaking, it's all been powered by customer requirements. Ultimately, in the service provider land, you've got obviously a rolling out of 5G networks or people on gigabit broadband and things like that. All of which requires a backbone of faster transceivers able to go and send the packets of data further. And then in the data center land, it's similar sort of thing. It's like you have huge applications and data hungry applications, with all sorts of different companies and verticals, be it finance or meteorology or whatever. It's all happening and it's going in that direction. So, I mean, what we're seeing though is that 100 gigabit per second, which a handful of years ago was super high-end technology, is now entering in the realm of being almost run rate. So what that means is that some of the technologies which were really expensive before have now become a lot more affordable. Within that, also you have a greater flexibility of the types of 100 gig optics, able to go different distances and reaches, able to have the architecture of the transceiver done in a different way. I mean, obviously I don't want to bore your listeners at all, but essentially the way how it's going is a diversification and greater flexibility in what we can offer. Previously, I mean, like the max distance we could say 100 gig could go was 40 kilometers. Now it's now 120 with different options, and then we're looking to go that further as well. And obviously now we're going into the realm of 400 gig as well, becoming more of a thing. That's even going to be, we can do products which are now able to go over 120 kilometers on the coherent side, and do within across entire countries and even continents. So we're talking products really diversifying.
What you're kind of now saying is that customers are actually embracing the change from the 10 gig through to the 100 gig, and now they're probably, if they're that data hungry, then going to look at the 400s.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So I mean, obviously it's all transceivers, and as with any IT product, go through a pathway of a limited take up initially due to cost primarily, and also use. But people say the same things all the time, like no, I'm never going to use that amount of data, and then in a couple of years' time, like, oh crikey, we really do need to use that much data.
We are becoming a bit more data hungry though, as a nation, right?
Absolutely. I mean, in the world, I mean, that's why, to be honest, our products and transceivers in general are it's an exciting place to be in, although the products themselves might not be that sexy. What they represent basically is the growing interconnectivity of the world, right? And be able to send things further and faster. And we basically are riding on that curve. I mean, we're already looking at things like 800 gig per second, which is, just to put it in layman's terms, that's a huge amount of data per second. And it's, considering when, a gigabit broadband is, for most people is insanely fast.
Yes.
And think about what you can do at home with 1 gigabit broadband. If you think about, what 100 gigabit or even, 800 gigabit per second optics is able to send massive amounts of data, which is all part and parcel of what customers want to do, which is be able to grow their applications and their business.
Jason, last one to you is around the roadmap from your perspective.
Yeah, thank you. So we've been talking about the roadmap from 1 and 10 gig to 100 gig. One of the things I'd like to compliment with George and sort of build upon is there's a very interesting migration path. You can choose to do that from 10 gig to 25 gig to 100 gig as kind of option 1, or option 2, you can choose to do 10 gig to 40 gig to 100 gig. And both of them have their merits, both of them have disadvantages, and it's just helpful sometimes to lay it out and kind of walk customers through what their options are. So turning to 40 gig to begin with, if you think about a conventional 1U switch, that tends to be about 32 ports of 40 gig that you can have in that form factor, which, a quick bit of maths, I think that's 1,280 gig worth of data throughput. You'll have to fact check me on that later on.
That sounds about right, Jace. We'll go with it.
So comparing that for a moment to 25 gig, I think the typical format for a 1RU switch would be 48 ports of 25 gig. So again, a quick bit of maths, I think that's about 1,200 gig worth of data. A little bit less on the face of things, but then you have space for usually 6 100 gig ports on the right hand side of that switch. That tends to be a fairly standard configuration. So by the time you've factored in that, that's another 600 gig, you're already up to 1800 gig in a 1RU form factor. So just comparing those two migration paths for a second, if you're very, very keen on port density and how much speed you can get out of that port density, then 25 gig on the face of it looks very, very impressive, and you get some higher returns on your investment there. But turning to 40 gig for a moment, there are probably some interesting products to call out. 40 gig SWDM4 is a fairly recent innovation, and it helps customers who are looking to achieve a 40 gig short reach on a multi-mode length of cable, but using your existing infrastructure that you probably have from 10 gig, which is probably a multi-mode fiber cable with an LC connector on the end. This particular transceiver can cope with a link of about 350 meters over an OM4 fiber cable, multi-mode fiber cable. So that's quite an interesting product. We help a lot of customers sort of understand the use case and application there. And very similarly, the 40 gig LX4, that's probably one worth calling out, which is very flexible as a product. It can operate on both multi-mode fiber for a short run of say 150 meters, but also on single mode fiber up to a distance of 2 kilometers. And again, the advantage there, you can use your existing infrastructure that you've probably carried over from your 10 gig network, using LC interfaces on your fiber. And then going to the 25 gig products for a moment, in addition to your conventional short reach and long reach transceivers, we're starting to see in the industry some really more innovative products, which includes bi-die products, making use of just a single fiber in case your application in your network is very demanding on use of fiber. That's a nice way of automatically increasing your bandwidth whilst still retaining the same number of fibers. And also the 25 gig 80 kilometer, which is again a new product to the AddOn portfolio.
Amazing. Gents, thank you so much for your time. I found that really valuable and interesting, so thank you. Please keep an eye out for the next in the Kubus podcast series that will be coming soon.
Thank you for joining us at the Kubus podcast. We hope you enjoyed the chat. Remember, there are more conversations in the series. Just search for Kubus wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe.